Fire Engineering Radio and to our show, Pride and Ownership, the Love for the Job. I'm your host, Chief Rick Lasky. We just had a couple of really cool things happen in our area here, starting right here in Louisville, which I'm hoping this kind of spreads to a lot more areas in the fire service across North America. And that is for our new Firehouse 7, we had the Masonic Lodge, we had the Masons come and level the cornerstone. This is a ceremony that's been going on for literally thousands of years, but especially in this country, since Ben Franklin, the father of the fire service, brought the first Grand Lodge, the Masonic Lodge, to the United States way back when, was one of the first Grand Masters. But this is an incredible ceremony, a lot of tradition, a lot of history. I tied the two together because of Ben Franklin and everything he's done for us, and the fact that he was such a part of that organization. My good brother Harry Carter, Dr. Harry Carter wrote an article once, Brothers Times Two, explaining both the brotherhood and the fire service and with the Masons, and incredible piece of work. And but what a great day. We wrote another page for the history book of the city of Louisville right here in Texas. So pretty cool. If you're looking for information on how to get that done, you obviously shoot me an email or give me a call, or better yet, get a hold of your local lodge, your local Masonic Lodge. I mean, they don't do these for private buildings. They only do it for public buildings, your firehouse, police station, school, church, and the like. But it's an incredible ceremony that brings about a lot of history. So we were honored to have them come out and do it, and it was just a great day. Next big news, a lot of you have been through the programs we teach at FDIC and all over the country, and my good brother and pal, Curtis Burt, was just sworn in as the fire chief of the Lake Cities, Texas Fire Department. Great fire department with some incredible firefighters. We work with them all the time. Curtis is my brother, and again, if you know him, you know he's the real thing and a great guy. If you get a chance and you do know him, shoot him an email at cburt, that's B-I-R-T, cburt at lakecitiesfire.com. Send him a little congratulations note there. I know he'd appreciate it if you've been through his programs. He's a great guy. Just had a great program up at Purdue University with the Boiler Fools up there, and Jason Fisher and the crew. And man, oh man, I could have stayed up there forever with Lafayette and West Lafayette and the firehouses, the museum that Lafayette has at their firehouse. If you're there, you need to see this place. And then they'll hook you up with this gentleman that's got. I could have moved into his house. His name's John. He's got more antique fire apparatus and equipment that I could ever imagine. I was like a kid in a candy store, having a ball there. And lastly here, before we get going on with our guest, there's a lot of great websites out there when it comes to getting information. Obviously this one at fireengineering.com, but you've got, Chief Billy Goldfeder's, firefighter close calls.com. You've got the near miss reporting system, where we can get to the information we need to keep our folks safer and learn from some things that have went on in the past instead of letting history repeat itself. There's another website that's popped up, and it's www.honortheirsacrifices.com. honortheirsacrifices.com. And it is self-explanatory when you get to it. It's a pretty good site. They just started this thing, and they've already they're off and running and doing a great job and gaining some speed. And it's a great site to search and look at those line of duty deaths and get the information you need to teach your folks, and hopefully that'll have that happen, or that same incident happen in your department. So another great site, honortheirsacrifices.com, to take a look at. And one more tool in the toolbox for you. That's just going to make you do your job better. Hey, today I've got another one of my brothers and my pals on the show, Captain Jay Coon from the Sacramento, California Fire Department. I had the opportunity to meet Jay when we were teaching FDIC West, and they told me about this guy that was going to be helping us facilitate out there. We were going to have to teach a program. When you're traveling across the country and you're going to be doing a national program, you're nervous about things pulling together and if things are going to go right. And man, oh man, we got there and we met Jay and we hit it off. This is a guy that invited our entire instructional staff each year. The highlight of the trip was going to his home. He and his wife Patty would open up their home to us, and we'd cook out and just relax and enjoy, and a lot of stress relief. And he's become great friends with a lot of our people. And we just had him out in Louisville. We'll talk about this in a little bit. And he and his partners taught a program out here that was freaking credible. The guys loved it, but Jay's currently with the training division in Sacramento working on some of their special ops stuff. He served with Rescue 20, and I think he's we'll talk to Jay here in a second, on a temporary detachment to training, but was on Rescue 20. Prior to that, Truck 17, 12 and 6, senior guy in the department, and just a great guy and a great brother. Jay, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you, Chief. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Jay. Hey, quick question for you. I want to just, before we get into some of the things I want to talk to you about, can you explain to our listeners what the goal was when you came to Louisville? First of all, who your partners were, and what you put the guys through when you came through, because I thought it was an incredible program. What was your goal with the whole program, buddy?
Well, when I talked to your firefighter Seth, he had pretty grandiose ideas on all the things we were going to try to cover in 2 days. But we just wanted to give kind of a little bit of a taste of everything. So we did some rope stuff, some high angle and low angle. We did some building collapse stuff. So we did some clean and dirty breaches, based on the FEMA standards. We did some crane stuff, and went over what heavy riggers do and what kind of issues that people have to deal with when they run into a building collapse, either on a large scale like New York, Oklahoma, or even on a small scale like just a single building collapse. The people I brought back there were Mike Wolf. He's a captain here, and he's an engineer himself, and he teaches with me on my heavy rigging class. We travel around teaching heavy rigging for FEMA. And then we had Jim McDade, and he taught all the torch stuff. He's an expert on metal cutting. And he's on the rescue over for the adjoining fire department for us for Metro. And then I had Scott Tolman. He worked on the same rescue company as I did. He was a young guy, and he was really into all the rope rescue guys things. So he played an integral part on my rescue company. So he was the guy. He can remember all the stuff and knots and all the way to tie people in, all the stuff that us old guys have trouble keeping up on.
Well, and it was Jay. It was, just being a spectator. It was, and you know how I'm about training. It was incredible to, not only to see the classroom that you did, which wasn't just a whole lot of pictures. It was, we're teaching you guys how to do this stuff. Then going out to the training field and watching these guys work their way through concrete slabs. Each one of the stations that you had set up was incredible. And then the evolutions you put them through at the end, we got to use some of the skills that you taught the guys, like I think the day after you left, with the rescue we had here. But now, that's something you're teaching all over the country, right? Bounce around. And now let's back up for a second. Tell us a little bit about what you do with FEMA. And I know you've been doing heavy rigging with your brother for how long?
Well, I started the heavy rigging when we first started the USAR program.
Okay.
But prior to that, before I came on the fire service, I had been an engineering contractor in Sacramento, and we worked on building towers and stuff like that. So I had a lot of prior experience before I even came into the fire service.
Well, and I know just your construction background, and I'm going to pick at you a little bit about one of the other things you do at the junior college a little bit, which I thought was awesome when I met you. But, Jay, the program is incredible. It's something that should be, if there's a department out there that handles heavy, or an area like here, you brought together, you and Seth Taylor, our driver engineer that's in charge of that stuff for us, brought together all the departments in this area, all the truck companies and rescue companies and the guys, and a lot of chiefs and captains, Jay, that are decision makers that got to come out and participate. I'm telling you, the next day, buddy, they were out there cutting steel again and busting things up. 2 or 3 departments came back over there just to work on this stuff. This is stuff that we need to get out to the troops out there so they can be a little better at what they're doing.
Well, like I said, Seth really outdid himself on setting that whole thing up and then hauling all that material in there for us to do it. Just like you, when we go on the road, we never know what we're going to run into as far as our logistical support. And we've never ran into anything quite as good as we ran into at Louisville.
Well, and buddy, it was, like I said, I can't thank you enough. It was a great program, and at the end, Jay will give you some information if you want to contact him, talk about that. But these guys, been around a lot of folks in this industry and a lot of trainers, and talk about heart and passion, and everybody just, everybody just clicked and got along, and it was a great program. And I saw Chief Jay, one of the senior battalion chiefs, Chief Kitchens from the Coppell Fire Department. Great guy, great man. He came over. He was like a little kid bouncing. He goes, "This is incredible. I'm going from one station. We just got to do this. We just got to do that." And to see the life, pumped into, because some of our senior members get to a point you go, "Okay, this is cool," and they're moving. And here's a guy that's been doing this, thinking about retiring in so many years, and he just was like a little brand new firefighter bouncing around out there. So I can't thank you enough, buddy. But one of the main reasons I want to get you on the show, Jay, and you and I have had many conversations about this, is the whole concept about truck operations and whether you have a truck or not. I kind of wanted to break it down because you and I have had many conversations, and I love the fact that you're very matter of fact, and when you're the kind of guy like me that you ask me a question, you're going to get an honest answer. So let's talk about the truck company for a few minutes, Jay, and let's start off by talking about the truck officer. With all the years, and I mean, when you were with 17, how many runs? You guys were making a ton of runs a year, weren't you?
Yeah, Sacramento's fire department is a busy department. Where at Rescue 20, we had an engine, the rescue company, which basically runs truck calls and technical rescues, and a medic, and we ran about 13,000 runs just out of that one station.
Okay, and I mean
so that's nothing really to be proud of in a way that because it interferes with any kind of training you have. It's very, very difficult to do training when people are constantly on call.
It's a pain in the ass. There's nothing worse that screws up a good training program than a good working fire. But all the other calls. But tell me, Jay. Let's talk about the officer in charge of, and you can combine these two if you want to talk about the rescue at the same time. But what if Jay Coon was asked to pick a successor for Truck 17? You're leaving there. You're going to go. This is back when you're moving to Rescue 20, and they said, Jay, we want you to pick a successor to fill your spot here as a captain. What kind of person, what kind of individual, and what are you looking for? I guess trait-wise, personality trait-wise, that makes a good truck captain. I guess is what I'm asking you.
Is there any chance we could borrow Seth Taylor?
Those that know
that's the epitome of what we're looking for in a truck guy. A guy who was already on a truck. The mistakes that people make, and our department makes them, and once in a while you can get away with it. But if you want to have a good truck officer, he has to have been a firefighter on him. And I know people think that we can just interchangeably move people around, but I worked as a firefighter, on a truck for several years before I ever thought about being an officer on it, And another thing you need to be on a truck, you need to be fit. And again, we're describing Seth right down the thing. And you need to be mechanically inclined, and you need to be the kind of person that loves the job,
Well, and you're talking about a multitask. I've said that for years. Whether you have an actual ladder company or whether it's truck operations, you have to be thinking on several different levels because you're searching without the protection of a handline often, right, Jay? You're on roofs. You've got to be a thinker, a mover, and a shaker to be one of those people running those crews, right?
Well, the building construction thing in California is, you run into the same thing in Texas. With all these lightweight roofs and all that stuff, it's really changed the dynamics of what you can do as far as, vertically ventilating,
Uh-huh.
And without that kind of experience in reading smoke and then on top of everything else, you have to be good at auto extrication and then EMS and then dealing with, all kinds of, personnel issues and then dealing with your customers. And, you're juggling a lot of balls. I used to teach the officers the orientation for the captain's class, and I don't mean any disrespect. I don't want hate mail, but I used to say to them, if Christ came off the cross, he'd have trouble being a captain in Sacramento Department because there's so many things you're supposed to know at a moment's notice that it almost makes it impossible. But if you're not willing to undertake that kind of a commitment, then you're not going to make a good officer either of an engine or a truck.
Well, and exactly, and we've talked before, Jay, you and I, and John Salka, my buddy, and a bunch of others about it all starts with leadership, and the lack of leadership is often back in the firehouse or the poor leadership that's getting people hurt. We're losing firefighters. We're not training. Just that comment before. If people don't understand what Captain Jay Coon was saying by, all these calls are making it difficult on training. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to pick up on exactly what you said, know exactly what you mean. bottom line is it comes down to how you train, how well you train, and how serious you are when you train. Real hard life. And I know you're that way. I mean, when you train your guys, it's real. It's not make believe. It's hard. I watched you out here, right? I mean, you get the guys down and dirty, and you do what you have to, right?
Well, you do, and it's. I always use I always compare being a firefighter to being on a football team. You didn't just run that 31 dive one time. And I'm a time and motion guy. The first time we do something, it'll take us 3 times as long as if we do it all the time. That is especially true in like auto extrication and confined space, trench rescue, any of those more complicated things where people kind of are back on their heels a little bit because they don't do them that often. A lot of times that is because they haven't done them that often.
Well, and how important are the basics, Jay? Getting the basics down. How important is that to you?
Well, you have to know. I like your quote in your book. Before you learn the tricks of the trade, learn the trade. And that's why I think it's so important. And a lot of people disagree with me, but I think it is important that you were a firefighter on a truck, and you actually learned all the basics of what a truck person's supposed to know about forcible entry and searching above the fire, all these kind of things before you take on the responsibility of putting people's life at risk. I can't tell you how many times I've chased my guys off of a roof. We're looking at the smoke, looking at the building construction. And young firefighters, like I always say, the only reason you need an old fire captain like me is to keep the young guys from getting killed. And that's what we bring to the incident is experience. We just had an experience here in Sacramento. Matter of fact, I'm writing the after action on it, where we had a young, aggressive people get above the fire and didn't even know they were above the fire, And those are the kind of things where I think experienced truck captains and engine captains, will stop that from happening, But again, I think you have to know all the basics. And people really don't like it when I say this, but I think a good truck captain needs to have been an engine captain and really know what they're thinking about too, especially in equipment placement, all the mistakes that people make. You'll see a truck guy come and pull next to a hydrant. Well, he would never do that if he was an engine captain at one time in his career.
That's a great point because, John and I go back and forth. Him, he was on trucks. He just doesn't like to admit it, Salka, but we go back and forth to the engine and truck thing, but one can't exist without the other. But I think if you're exactly right, you need that foundation. You have to know what's expected of you and what you're doing. How can you go in and truly operate as a truck company if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, support-wise for the engine crew? And that's an excellent. No one's ever. We never had anybody saying it just like that. I think that's a great point you make.
Well, when I tell people when I teach truck stuff, I say everything the truck does makes the fire burn better. So don't start truck operations. We have, in California, we'll have 5 or 6 houses burning at once because of the wildland issues. And I've had young truck guys jumping up and trying to vent the house because they were trained as truck guys, not realizing that there's no engine people even on site yet, And so, again, you have to see the complete picture, and if you've been on both a truck and an engine, it does make you a more well-rounded person,
Well, and Jay, there's a lot of departments out there that don't have the ability to, they're lucky sometimes to even have a truck company, majority of fire departments, and a lot of them will come up to me and say, well, how do you get the experience? We're a young department, or I don't have Captain Jay Coon here. The guy, he's already gone, and now they want me to be on his truck company. And Jay, I think you agree with me. I tell them, there's ways. Get in your car. We have it happen here. We have guys come right out with our truck company. We have guys make phone calls. They go and sit, have coffee. It's not like crawling into a building, but there's plenty of people out there. There's plenty of programs. There's plenty of stuff on the internet. There's plenty of ways to fine-tune or get you at least some of the stuff you need, in the absence of actually having all those years crawling down hallways. Because some of these guys are just stuck in that company because that particular captain retired. So I'm telling them, get out and go. You know what? If you're anywhere near you, call Captain Jay Coon and say, if I'm coming to Sacramento, can I have a half a day or a couple hours and meet with you and I want to talk truck operations with you because I'm being put on a truck and I'm really not there yet. Is that the way you look at it as well, Jay, to give some of these younger guys that may not have that opportunity a chance to get that training?
And I also encourage young people to come and help teach classes with older people. just sitting and listening to all the different conversations like you and I've had, over a few beers or whatever, you pick up little things that that people that took years of experience to gain. I was just out teaching a roof class the other day, and when I go up and vent a gable roof on a 2-story, I walk over on the back side of it, on the opposite side of the ladder, to vent it, depending on the wind and a few other things. But and if it says like a 6 and 12 or 7 and 12 roof, and I had a young fireman go, "Why?" And I go, "Because I want all the sawdust and stuff on the opposite side of when I'm walked down towards that ladder." Those are the little things that old guys do. I always tell these young guys, I said, if you want to watch a lazy man work, watch these old truck guys. When they came off that truck, they had a salvage cover already on their shoulder, because they knew then they were going to a kitchen fire, they were going to pull the ceiling, and they didn't have to walk back and get it again. So there are, if you go and work and talk to older truck guys, you can pick up a lot of things that, like time and motion study things, where you actually save yourself a lot of work.
Well, and you remind me of something. You can always tell who the new truck officer is when they or a new truck firefighter, if you will. They come down. You tell them you got to do assignment. They run back to the rig. They get that tool. Then they come down. They run back to the rig. The next fire, they grab their Stokes basket like a shopping cart. They load everything up if they didn't get to the front of the building, or they say they were second due and they were a little bit down the street, and they carry their Stokes basket or a ladder. I've seen them. Yeah, you've seen them. You take your ground ladder, you pile your pike poles, your saws, everything you need right on top of it, and the 4 of you carry it down there, so you're not making those trips back and forth, because about the 4th time you do it, you go, "This sucks." I need to be smarter at that. That's kind of what you said when you said the learn the trade before you learn the tricks. Eddie Enright, my mentor, in fact, I think you just had Eddie and Jack McCassin, a group of them out there. I saw the flyer came out, or they're coming out to teach a program, and those are 2 guys, Jack McCaslin from Illinois, and Eddie Enright, that I love and I brag them. They're my idols. I mean, they're the reason I do what I do. And Eddie was at one. Everything from Jay. You got to know how much hose you need to. You better learn this trade before you get to the tricks. The tricks come afterwards, but they mean nothing to you unless you learn this trade. And that's something that a lot of guys don't think of, is when they get up on the roof. How many times you've seen guys tell you they're going to cut a 4-foot by 4-foot hole or whatever, and by the time they're done, they've got this little thing cut that looks big to them up there. And they don't. You know what I'm saying? They didn't get it done the way they should have.
Well, again, and the thing that I've noticed the most in the last 20 years of being on trucks is in Sacramento is we're walking away from some of the salvage stuff. We're not as careful as we used to be in taking care of people's belongings. I don't know how that quite happened. I don't know if we're just spread too thin, or but I mean, every truck used to in Sacramento had 10 salvage covers on it, and before we pulled ceilings, if we could at all, we did everything we could to protect the people's property. Then we pulled the ceiling and went after the attic fire or whatever the incident was, And I think those are the kind of basics that we need to get back to. There's all kinds of little things that I've noticed in the last few years, and that I'm kind of a stickler about with my truck companies. People who've worked for me, they better have a salvage cover coming off the shoulder, because if they damage people's property, I mean, these people are our customers. My favorite saying to all my young firefighters is, "Fight this fire like it's your house." And then you don't have to tell them to spread a salvage cover over somebody's guitar, because, where I've seen people come in and I don't quite understand it, but they're cavalier with people's property when we don't have to be, And another culture that's really bothering me, and I brought it up to my own department, is we need to slow down. I think part of the thing started with the SCBAs in the back of all these rigs. But, I mean, we need to slow, when you're running to the fire, you're not looking at the building and picking up the things that could save your life.
Jay, you know what? My buddy Tom Freeman, another one of my mentors, Chief of Lyle Woodridge Fire District, I talked about Eddie from Chicago and Jack McCassin from Illinois, from Oak Lawn, and Tom used to say, one of the things we got away from, even though the bunker pants are important and we're protecting our people better, when you had the 3/4 boots, what you often saw was before you got off the rig, before you went any further, you stopped and you started to pull up your boots, and as you're pulling up your boots, you were looking up at the building. You were taking a second just to look at the building and see what the smoke's doing. And I think you're exactly right. When you've got someone already seated, and air packs are fine as seats, but the mindset has to be that size up is everyone's job. When you're already ready to go, I mean, Jay, there's guys out there, which I think this is just lunacy, that already have their face piece on, their hood and their helmet in the jump seat, which is just, I mean, you're increasing your breathing already. Your visibility is gone. You're not seeing the whole picture. First of all, don't you believe, Jay, if you're proficient with your SCBA, it should take you a while to put your face piece on, your hood and your helmet anyway, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if somebody did that in my truck, they'd only do that one time. We had a guy put it on, fog it up, fall out of the truck, and hurt himself before he even got to the fire. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We need to go back, take a deep breath. My favorite thing is I tell my apparatus operator, who's our driver, and the fire, you didn't like this. And when you're running towards the building, your head is down because when you run, you put your head down. If you walk, you have your head up. And you can see all the things, high voltage lines, drop lines. There's so many hazards on fires, and that's what we're trying to get everybody. We in our department now just to calm down, especially with the change in building construction now and all these TGIs for floor joists on the second floor. Just take a moment, and it can save our lives or keep you from getting seriously injured. And it starts with the SCBAs. As a captain, I can't be putting my SCBA on and looking at a map and talking on the radio and instructing the apparatus operator where to go. It just doesn't work that way. So when I get out, if the people are already dressed like that, I hold them back and say, we're going to go over there as a company, And some of the young guys, it's, the old bull and the young bull, it's the whole thing. But that's what we need the old people for, is just to slow everybody down and we're all very aggressive firefighters. We've all earned our stripes, but we open ourselves to much more of an injury like we just had in Sacramento by just not taking that extra maybe a minute or 30 seconds to observe where the fire is. The fire's coming out the second-story window does not mean it's on the second story.
And Jay, that's a very good point you made with telling everybody to slow down. But here's a point for the young firefighters that are listening out there right now, the young officers. You know what? All right, let's fast forward for a little bit. You don't have to have 25 years in a job to pin the collar pins on to turn around and tell you guys to slow down. There's the point being made here. You're exactly right, Jay. We are running into stuff. We watch the videos. How many videos have you watched, Jay, where you're screaming at the television and go, what are you guys doing? Look up or look around. Didn't you see this or didn't you see what's going on with the smoke here or whatever? So here's the point. If you're a younger officer and you don't have the time on a job that a Captain Jay Coon has or some of these other folks, take that message and run with it. If you do nothing more than slow your people out, you're still going to do your job. You're still going to get there and do it. Slow them down, take a look, and make sure everybody's sizing up. I mean, that's a great point to make, Jay, just getting people to slow down a little bit. Let me ask you this. What do you expect? You're back on the truck. Let me put you back on the truck because they asked you to come over and help out with training back in August. So, but you're back on your truck company. New firefighter walks in. They said, you're going to be assigned to this truck company. He's coming from an engine or whatever. You're going to sit down over a cup of coffee, have that talk with him as the truck captain. What do you tell that young firefighter that's coming to work for Captain Coon on his truck, on Truck 17?
I'm going to tell him, for one, you don't have the luxury of having water with you. And two, you're going to have to learn to work alone. Work independently. Not so much alone, but independently. Yeah. The truck people, as a rule, when I started, were the more experienced guys. Because when you go up above a fire and do a search, that is super dangerous. This Van Ender search, VSP, VIS, it's just so dangerous. My young guys, I don't let them do it. They all want to climb up these ladders and bust into these windows. I say, you're going to have to earn your stripes with me before I start letting you do that, because we've done it, and I've had my coat burned off and everything else. It is a very, very dangerous place to be above that fire. And if you don't get that door closed, as soon as you get through that window, flame starts rolling out the window. Now you're trapped up there. So.
You better make sure your guys are absolutely. That's what we do here. Scott Thompson, our training chief, and the company officers, they train. On the outside vent man position, we train on that all the time with as much as we could do real life situations. Jay, you were down at our training facility, and for that vent inner search, we train and we train and we train and we train. But you're right; it is a selective kind of process that. And I hate to say it because our young firefighters are incredible people. These are men and women who are doing a great job for us. But I agree with you. I'll give you an example, Jay. We had two kids in a building on fire. People yelling, they're trapped, everything else. And when it came time to do this, I looked at three captains that were standing there, and I looked at one, Calvin Allison, and I said, Calvin, I need you to do this for me. And it was no disrespect to the other two captains at all, but I looked at the guy with the whiskers, the guy that's been around, the guy I know who can get in there. Exactly like you said, calm and think clearly, close the door never. If I'm going to put someone in that potentially hostile environment, I want to make sure they know what they're doing. They've got some experience behind them.
Well, that's it. And, it's hard. It's just no matter what business it is, whether it's building houses or teaching or anything, they want you to have experience, but you have to go somewhere and get it, And firefighting is extremely dangerous. And from our experience here in California, it's getting more dangerous. We're seeing with all of the new building construction and with all the foam cushions and stuff, we're seeing fires just explode on our firefighters. And with this, going in deeper and further and all this other stuff, and with all the new clothing we've had, just in the last 6 months here in Sacramento, we've had almost 10 people or so get killed just by the grace of God they didn't. On close calls. So we're acutely aware of the issues that we're facing here in California.
And you said it before, it's getting harder to train. We're getting busier. There's more competing demands. They want us to be trained in so many different areas. It's getting harder and harder, and that's what I tell people, Jay. You've got all these websites. You've got all these video clips. Start looking at the smoke. Watch what the guys are doing. Hell, you can look at a magazine cover and sit down for an hour and talk tactics and strategy and start educating guys. I mean, Jay, I used a video clip years ago that I'll never forget. We went to this fire, same kind of fire, and one of my guys came out, and through his mask, he says, we weren't going to have another fire like we saw in that video. And I'm like, I mean, he hadn't been there, Jay. He wasn't at that fire, but because we gave him the clip and showed him and discussed the lessons learned, he had the foresight to say, you know what, I'm not going to do like what I saw in that video clip. Even though he wasn't actually there, he was able to take that knowledge and use it to keep his guys safe. Hey, and I want to ask you a real quick question here about, rescue company. Do you feel, aside from maybe what they're actually carrying between a truck and a ladder company, what is there anything different in the personality trait that you're looking at a rescue company officer or the crew? Or do you think, because this is a big debate, what's the difference between a rescue guy and a truck guy? And some people say they're kind of the same. Some people say, there's a little bit different because you get more technical with some of the stuff you're doing. But, between the two, just what's your spin on the whole thing, between a rescue and a truck company officer?
Well, what the problem we had in California was, when they started all these rescue companies, people ran and got these certifications for trench and confined space and these things, but they didn't spend any time on trucks. And the problem that we run into in Sacramento is that the rescue company also works as a truck company.
Okay.
So what we really need is a person that's been on a truck, as a firefighter, as an engineer, or as a captain for several years, so that basically you're not trying to teach them also how to work off a roof ladder, how to search above the fire, what VES is, how to force a door with a Halligan, and all these other things. Because as an officer, when you have people you have to teach them both the truck stuff and then all the technical rescue stuff. You become overwhelmed, especially when you're running, 2,000 or 3,000 runs a year on top of it.
Well, how about the crews that aren't? Let me ask you your thoughts on that. What about the fire departments that are running fewer runs? I mean, I've always told guys, they go, why are we doing this training? We haven't had a fire in 6 months or 8 months. I'm like, the further you are from your last fire, the closer you are to your next one, so you should be probably training more. I mean, what do you tell those guys that aren't in the busy companies? How do they stay sharp?
Well, we don't have a lot of people that aren't in busy companies, but I tell you what, you don't have very often, are these technical rescues, like high-angle rescues, And people do lose interest in training for something. I know where their use are even we do that. I've only been to like a couple of trench rescues in my whole career in 23 years. But yet every month we have to take all the speed shores out and air shores and go through all the stuff on doing it. And that's the special kind of guy that the rescue guy is. He has to be kind of a training geek. Would be a nice way to put it. A guy who really loves to train just for the sake of training. Again, it's a time and motion study when you get on these things, or it's like being on a football team. You do practice plays that you may only run once a year. It's not like your regular bread and butter 44 trap or 31 dive or whatever kind of offense you had. So one more thing I just want to say about these rescue things, and I travel around and teach heavy rigging to all these rescue companies, is that the city managers, they just they wake up one morning and write all risk on their letterhead for the fire department, and I don't think they do enough homework, or they don't realize what kind of responsibility that puts the chiefs and the officers of that department in. We ran into that problem ourselves. With all these cell sites, for example, we had people up, having medical issues on them or getting electrocuted or whatever. And then I'm just now writing the SOGs on high-angle rescue on a tower, and we've had a rescue company for, 15 years or 12 years. We really just never have we kind of put the cart in front of the horse on a lot of the stuff. It's easy just to say that you're all rescue, and then all of the stuff with the water, like I know you guys deal with that in Louisville. There's a tremendous responsibility, training responsibility, and money issue if you really want to get into all these different arenas, and especially if you want to be OSHA compliant like we have to be in California.
Well, it does. It takes the backing. I had my boss, my city manager, on this show just because, and I have no problem saying it. It's not kissing up or nothing. I work for a great boss. You've seen it. You've seen what my city manager and the mayor and council, how they support this fire department. Not everybody has that luxury, and you're right. Sometimes it's like they expect you, and you're like, well, you got to support me, boss. At the same time, you got to provide me with the funding and just the fiscal support to make this all happen. And you know what? And that's perfect, because I want to ask you a couple things here before we finish out the hour. And for the folks that are out there, we've been visiting with Captain Jay Coon for the Sacramento Fire Department, Sacramento, California. Jay, when I met you, one of the things that amazed me about you was, and I don't mean to embarrass you or put you on the spot, was not only just what a great guy you are and a great family man and a brother, but your background with teaching at the junior colleges, your union background. You and I've talked about this. I'm very pro labor, and I believe in all our volunteer firefighters as well. But nowadays with where the economy's going, I guess that's what I want to blend this all together. I want to ask you your thoughts right now on budgets, kind of the economy, and do our unions and do our firefighters need to be a little bit patient with what's going on? I know some of them don't understand where the money comes from, and my boss was really good at explaining that when I am on a show. But just to pick your brain, not that we're on CNN right now, but what are your thoughts on where we're going with the economy? And we just had a change in the White House and budgets for fire departments. What unions, the whole thing? What's your thought on that?
Well, boy,
and we only have
at the beginning, because then I could have talked a whole hour on this. Let's see, on unions. I was a director of our union here in Sacramento, and I'm very pro-union. But I think the union people need to be more patient. I think here I can speak in California, like the city of Sacramento. Our money that our city gets basically exactly follows the business cycle, because it's mostly just off sales tax revenue. And that's what feeds the fire department. That's what pays the fire department. But I think, again, what we need to do, and I talked to our chiefs of our department about it, is we're still getting cats out of trees. We're still going to people that are code 2 calls. At some point, if we're going to, and we're talking about closing or browning out more stations next year, at some point you have to kind of pull back on some of the services you're providing. I know nobody wants to hear this, but you just can't. I know our medics, for example, where I work, it was not unusual for them to run 25 calls a day. 25. At some point, we're not taking care of the health of our own employees. There's two dirty secrets in the fire department, and one is the sleep deprivation issue that these really busy companies are dealing with, and the other is overhaul. Two things that are expensive to deal with. And me, I always talk about truth, but if we don't have more money and we can't, why I would like to follow NFPA. There should be some number of runs that an engine company should be able to take in a year, and then after that, they need to open another engine company, or they have to try to restrict the number of calls that they're getting. 28, 3,000, but we have many of our engine companies are at 5,000 and 6,000. Our medics are at 5,000 and 6,000. It's not conducive to having, healthy employees.
Well, and Jay, when you talk about that, a lot of people understand, they just, I'll catch up on my sleep or my body will just adjust. I don't think it really does. I think medically it doesn't adjust. You've lost that sleep, and that's hurting you. You can only go so long. They're not machines, and if they are machines break. But I think you bring up a very good point there as well about, being able to take care before you wear everybody out. And what happens when people are fatigued and are tired with their decisions that they make on a fire ground, right? We start doing things like someone who's tired at the job site, construction site. We didn't set the ladder right. We end up cutting ourselves. I'm saying that when you're tired, you don't make good decisions.
No, you don't. And that's, we have to just kind of get, we need to start thinking outside the box on dealing with, especially the EMS stuff. We need to open more medical clinics. I went and talked to the Sandy Sheedy, who's a city council person from Sacramento, and I said, Sandy, these people, it's not the people that are calling 911. It's not their fault. There's no place for them to turn here in Sacramento. They use our ambulance service as a way to go to the hospital. But if we had medical clinics, it's like killing a fly with a sledgehammer to take a paramedic to a guy with a gout or something.
Right.
We need to start thinking, having a new paradigm on how to take care of the medical issues, and then free the fire department up back to do the stuff that they're trained to do. Like I said, it's a broken system. Our ERs are overcrowded here in California. They're going bankrupt, for a whole bunch of issues. People have certain things they want to say they might blame it on, but basically what we need to do is treat these people with, nurse practitioners, and then have clinics in these areas where they're depressed and people are out of work, and help people take care of these medical issues, because if you let them go, they become more and more expensive for us as taxpayers to deal with.
Well, and Jay, that's one of the reasons I brought that up, because when I first met you and I found out that you were doing, you were teaching at the college over there and teaching economics and some of the things, and I was always fascinated because you had this spin on things, on budgets and life, that I go back, and I know I called you back a couple times and go, what did you say and how did you say that? Because, I think sometimes we get so wound up and so technical and so I don't know, just we kind of booger up the works instead of looking at things kind of realistically, like you said. We're wearing our people out, and how do we adjust that with declining budgets, and what do we do? And I think you're right. Until people step up and say we're going to have to spend money on this, or we're going to take a hit here, it's just going to keep happening.
Well, we're not spending money efficiently, and I think like I said, if you move these clinics into these neighborhoods where the high volume of these 911 calls would go, the calls would go down, the equipment and wear and tear on the equipment and on the people would go down. And then when they had real, true emergencies, difficulty breathing issues and diabetic issues and all these kind of stuff that are really true emergencies, people will be free. Many times when we have issues now, we have no units available, or we have a unit that's driving 5, 6, 7 miles through the city code 3, which is both dangerous to them, dangerous to the public, and it's very hard on the equipment. So it's. Like I said, when I was talking to you, I had written my thesis on the EMS, and the one thing that we need to do, we need to view the paramedic service from a benefit cost perspective. Look at it more of instead of just looking at it as a waste of money, because to sometimes city managers and that, it is. But we do a lot of good. When we save a person's life, that life is worth $1 million. Granted, they don't step out of the hospital and write a check to the city manager for $1 million. But if we value it, if we match benefits and costs of our EMS and our ALS systems from that perspective, it would probably be one of the best investments the government could ever make. But unfortunately, we don't,
And Jay, Kenny Gabriel, my buddy, and your buddy up the chief in Coeur d'Alene. Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County was I guess a very good example of, we had Rural Metro up there for a while, and third-party private running the EMS system, and then part of the hospital ran the paramedics, and the fire chief stepped up and said, all our tax money is going to fund this. Why don't we just run this? Let's do a fire-based EMS system. But, Jay, they also, in the process, they took non-emergent transports and critical care. They hired back people. They hired the staff, the doctors, and that's where the money was. I mean, you did your thesis on fire-based EMS and all that. But they've realized a pretty good income by, we're going to do this. If we're already transporting people to their doctor's offices, like you said. Well, you know what? Let's hire back these people. Let's hire people that are just starting out, want to be EMTs or whatever, basics, and we're going to free up the 911 ambulances to do just like you said, the what quote unquote true emergencies. But we're going to provide this service. We're going to go there. We're going to take care of the customers, and it's a system that's working really well up there. They've taken hold of the whole thing in the county there, the whole system.
Well, again, it just depends on how much the local governments can afford or the counties can afford. Our county's in dire straits, our state's in dire straits, our city is in dire straits. We are in for a real tough time here in the next couple of years, and trying to provide some of these services the way we have. We need to, just like I said, maybe find a new paradigm, think outside the box, whatever kind of term you want to use, to try to cut the cost down.
Well, and Jay, that's what I was going to finish up with, buddy, is, and you and I have talked about it, and I've met plenty of your folks. You've got some incredible firefighters in the Sacramento Fire Department. I mean, over the years, traveling out there to teach at FDIC and just out there to visit, there's some incredible folks that are doing a great job. This is the real thing. Sacramento FDs, the real thing when you look at fire departments. It's not make-believe, man. They're out there doing it. Nobody's perfect. Hell, we got things going on here we have to adjust all the time. If I get guys to quit losing portable radios at $3,800 a pop, I'd be happy. Let's kind of end things with, and you've kind of hit on it already, ballpark it, the future of the fire service. Where do you see us going? I mean, we're into everything. I mean, you and I have talked about this. We never in a million years ever thought we would be being trained on weapons of mass destruction. Pre 9/11, if you had talked about that, people say you're out of your mind. Unless you're really into hazmat, you never saw that stuff. Where do you, we talked a little bit about budgets, the economy. Do you see the fire service staying the same, or do you see it changing, or where do you see things going, buddy?
Well, it's changed a ton just in the time you and I, since we've started. The rescue stuff has changed. A lot of it is, like you said, has been driven by the terrorist stuff. When we started our USAR program here in Sacramento, we never even knew what a terrorist was. We were all preparing for earthquakes. And then when Oklahoma and some of these other things occurred, we started, having a new focus, I think that the medical thing is a surprise. When I came on, we never were paramedics. We didn't even know what a paramedic was. So as far as I don't know exactly where it's going to end. I think we need to, like I said, adjust what we say we can do. Sometimes you try to do too many things. You don't do anything very well. And I know for our own department here, we're trying to. And then a lot of times, what we need to do is just consolidate from one fiefdom to another. I am a proponent of maybe only having one rescue company for Sacramento instead of our department having one, the Metro having one, West Sac, all these everybody having their own one. Maybe we need to consolidate things and save some money that way. We need to just maybe consolidate some of these fire departments and cut on our overhead costs. these are the kind of things that we're gradually getting forced into doing. We're doing it in our training divisions now, where we're all getting together and training. 10 years ago, we all had our own department.
And you're not always talking about costing people jobs. It's the first thing people think, Jay. We can consolidate these two departments. I'm going to be out of a job. You're rearranging some things, but they're doing it in Florida, and I know they've done it out by you, and it's actually bolstering things, isn't it, in some cases?
Yes, and it actually makes it more seamless, and people gradually drop their barriers, and we're working together now, but I think, like I said, I think that the financial mess that we're in is going to drive us to be to accept mergers and other things that we have put off in the past. And like you said, with retirements and everything else, most of the mergers are you're getting people at the higher end, not necessarily on the lower end, And especially on rescue things and hazmats and all these other things, take a hard look at how many of these calls you really have, and then see if you really need to have one in every little fire department.
Exactly. Well, Jay, we're doing some pretty cool things here. I know I bragged before on the show about, we're purchasing gear together around here, air packs. We're running together, automatic aid, doing things where, even if you don't move towards the whole consolidation thing, you could start doing some of these functional consolidated things where you're making group purchases, saving money where you can. Every penny counts, and if we can save money by going in together with turnout gear with several other departments around here, then that's a good thing. But hey, and I'm going to play. Lastly, I want to play on one more thing with you, buddy, on your experience, because I've sat there. I wish I had a tape recorder when I've sat with you at restaurants and at Indy, or just sitting around when we used to do the training, and heard you. You just kind of, I think accidentally, it just comes out of you, this advice that I love. What advice would you give brand new firefighter, just graduated academy? What would Captain Jay Coon, say? And this is how I kind of want to finish up the show today with you. Is what advice would you give to that new firefighter, buddy? What would the advice be coming from the captain?
Take pride in this job. Love this job. Don't lose sight of who you're working for. Don't believe everything you read in the newspaper. I've said this, and you and I have said this. 9/11, in a lot of ways, had people, they got almost too much credit and too much attention. Here in our department, I know it was true. I think they need to get back to the basics of realizing that, and stay in shape and training every day, and more like it was when you and I started. That's what I tell all these guys. I said, hey, this is, when you graduate, this is really a commencement. You are commencing on this career that you should be very, very proud of. And just recognize how lucky you are to have this. I love this job. And it goes from the chief like you all the way down through the captains like me, all the way down to the guy we just hired.
It's being passionate about the job, buddy. And that's what, I admire about you is just your passion, your love. I saw it when you came out and you taught here. I know anybody that's been through your programs just loves it. Buddy, I appreciate everything you're doing for the fire service, what you've done as a union member, and I know the guys out there love you, and you're cut to the chase, honest person. I wish we had more people like you. When you ask a question, you're going to get the real deal, and agree to disagree. I love it because it gets me fired up, buddy. We've talked about stuff. I think the same reason, Jay, people like the whole pride and ownership stuff is because you know what? You call it like it is. Enough with, massaging and worrying about hurting someone's feelings. You know what? Maybe if you got your feelings hurt, it's because you need to change something or whatever. You need to get better. Love the job, like you said, more. So I love you, buddy. You're my brother, and you've done a ton of things for me in my career, and I appreciate you, pal. Hey, Jay, if guys want to get a hold of you, some of these men and women want to get a hold of you to maybe see if you'd come out and do a class or just to pick your brain about some of the things we talked about, is there an email they could get a hold of you at, buddy?
Yeah, it's the letter J, Coon, COON, at sfd.cityofsacramento.org.
Okay. And that's perfect. If guys and gals, if you're looking to get a hold of Jay, shoot him an email, and you will get an answer from him. And a lot of people out there are slow with their emails, and Jay's running a 300 miles an hour in different directions, but he always replies to his emails with everything got going on. Jay, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today, buddy. I appreciate it, pal.
Hey, you take care, Chief. It's been just a real pleasure.
All right. We've been visiting with Captain Jay Coon from the Sacramento Fire Department. Another one of those folks, I've said it before, you look up the definition of a true fire service brother, you'll see Jay's picture there. So another great show. Thanking Fire Engineering for making this all possible, and our brother Peter for all the hard work he does at putting these shows together. We've been getting some great feedback over the past year now, and a lot of folks listening. Spread the word. Train. There's always 10 minutes in your day to get better at what you're doing. MakeFireEngineering.com, your morning newspaper, like we said before. Take just a few minutes of your life and get better at what you're doing. It will save your life. And as we always end the show with two very, very, very important words, be safe.